So, it's been a while since my last video. I've been a little busy, and it just fell by the wayside, I guess. You know, authors can't really keep to a schedule. That was a joke. It wasn't funny, was it? Yeah, thought so. Well, instead of leading off with a horrible joke, let's go into it. I wasn't doing well last week, and I'm still not doing that well this week. I'm still quite a ways behind. Not a lot behind, mind you. I'm actually only 6,000 words down from what my target would have been for today. Caught up, and I'm still on track to beating 50,000 words by the 30th. As long as I can keep up a modicum of good writing, I'll be able to do it. The writer's block hasn't really left me, and, well, that's just causing problems. But as is true NaNoWriMo tradition, I'm just barreling through it, writing even though I don't feel it. I don't think what I'm writing is any good, and I want to go back, erase it all, and do it again. Fortunately, that's what rewriting is all about. So once you finish your first draft, which is really what NaNoWriMo is, writing a first draft of a novel or novella, the second draft through 18th, is all about rewriting. It's all about taking the parts that work, making them work better, taking the parts that don't work, and making them work. In fact, most of good writing happens in the rewrite stage. I know some people don't hate to rewrite because, it's out there, it's done. Not touching that again. But that's a bad way to go about writing. It really is. The process that I use for writing, I think I've talked a little bit about this before, but the process that I use starts with the idea. Then I start putting the world in place. I create the setting, I create the characters, so that they fit into the idea, so that they fit into the theme that I'm going for. And then I put together the plot. The idea and the plot are different things entirely for me. For other writers, it isn't so. For other writers, the plot is the idea. But when I write a story, I have in my head that I have an idea to start with. I want to do something. I want to bring out something. Generally, a lot of the ideas I actually come up with are commentary on stories. In a way, I want to write a story to show how a certain plot point or how a certain thing can be done. Basically, I want to write a story that is better than the one I've been reading. I don't know if a lot of people use that as a writing inspiration. I know I do. I get a lot of my inspiration from reading. And there is an old adage in writing circles, write what you know. But I've heard it worded a different way, write what you read. Basically, the more you read of something, the better a handle you have on all of the things that go into it. So you're better able to reproduce it or improve on it, if you will. Now, I'm not arrogant enough to say that I can improve on anything I read. It's just that that's where I get inspiration. And reading something terrible usually gives me more inspiration than reading something really good. When I'm reading something really good, I really want to enjoy what I'm reading. I don't think too much about, oh, this is weird, or this plot point doesn't make sense here. I'm into it. Suspension of disbelief. I'm in the story. I'm living it through the eyes of the characters and the narrators and just immersed in it. And so I don't see the faults in it. I don't pick out the little niggling details until I look back on it much later from a more distant perspective. However, when I'm reading an awful story, when I'm reading a book that just makes me cringe, I get lots of ideas. maybe it's because my mind is wandering because I just can't get myself as into these stories. Maybe it's because I'm like, oh, this is terrible. I could do this so much better. You know, the usual non-writer's complaint. If that happens, like if I'm reading an awful story, suddenly it's like my brain goes into overdrive and I've got lots of great ideas coming out of the woodwork. So I tend to read bad stuff when I'm, at least when I'm trying to write. I read bad stuff. Not always a good idea, because the ideas that come to me aren't always the ones that fit with what I'm trying to write. And like anybody with a lot of imagination, I also can get distracted fairly easily. And so when I'm trying to write one thing and all of a sudden another idea pops into my head, I'm enthusiastic for the other idea more than I am for the one I'm currently working on, since as I'm working on it, I don't need to be that enthusiastic about it. This is not what's happening to me this November. I'm not reading trash this November. In fact, I'm reading some really good stuff, which I suppose is part of the problem. It's the really good stuff that I'm reading is, actually I'm reading Brandon Sanderson. He's the guy who's finishing Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series. And I just happened to see two very, very large books from him out this month. Towers of Midnight, the newest Wheel of Time book, and The Way of Kings, his own personal new fantasy epic. I like Brandon Sanderson. He's quite good. And he has two massive books out in National Novel Writing Month. Yeah, that's where my productivity went last week. Fortunately, I'm a quick reader. I finished them, so now I'm working real hard on catching up on my word count. I'm working real hard on working out of my rut, my writer's block, and hopefully I'll be able to actually start pulling out some really good stuff. I have written some really good scenes and some really piss poor ones, but I'm liking it when some of the really good stuff, I'm stuck in a few places in how to introduce a whole bunch of characters without it seeming too stilted. But I figure, I'm 6,000 words down, stilted. I'm just going to do it. So, no real profound insights this week. I'm just saying that I've got a lot of catching up to do. Maybe next video I'll have something interesting to say. See you then.